Uh, I came across a couple of lines this morning in Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. I'm not sure if this is a poem or not. Uh, it's laid out typographically so that it looks like a poem, but I don't know if it's a poem. I'm going to read it 6 lines. Art is choosing to do something skillfully, caring about the details, bringing all of yourself to make the finest work you can. It is beyond ego, vanity, self-glorification, and the need for approval. I'll read it again. I'll change a word. I'll change 2 words. Make it a little more Bernie and a little bit more specifically about today. Social action is choosing to do something skillfully, caring about the details, bringing all of yourself to make the finest meal you can. It is beyond ego, vanity, self-glorification, and need for approval. Would you like to share what's coming up? I could also just ask, what's your social action? And then maybe if we don't have any social action, we talk about what's that about.
I'd like to comment on the first question about what's coming up. You let a list of withouts at the end of that quote. You know, without ego or without needing approval or all those things. I struggle with that, and the shorthand explanation I give myself when I see that coming up is that you know, that those things got me here. And giving them up and saying I'm going to now do it without that doesn't seem like I'm gonna go as far. You know, if I'm swimming in the pool and I'm using my arms and legs, and then the swim coach says, "Okay, now do it without your arms and legs," I can't see how I'm going to swim as quickly.
Which is like imagining that vanity is your arms and legs, huh? Thank you. Yeah.
I would like my life to be a statement of love and compassion, and where there's so much out here, especially like now with that shooting in Maine. People saying, well, you know, people with PTSD should basically be locked away. And then today I was sitting, my wife told me that some congressman wants to have a law that just because you're a veteran with PTSD, they shouldn't have the right to take your weapons away. And it's hard to be compassionate to somebody sounding so stupid. And, you know, I'm between the rock and the hard place. I can sympathize with one side, but the other side are stupid.
How about take everybody's weapons away?
Yeah, that's so that's where I am today. Because I have PTSD, I got rid of my weapons. And, sometimes I say, well, what if I ever needed them? Well, the what if is a very strange foreign country.
Uh, did any of you know Claude Thomas? Claude Thomas is a veteran and a Zen guy, Zen priest, and had a lot of trauma in Vietnam. Came back very damaged. Had his weapons with him all the time. Used to talk about how it was only, basically it's only through grace that he hadn't shot anybody in the middle of the night. That it was like when Thich Nhat Hanh met Claude, I saw something right away in Claude, that this gathering of veterans, somehow Ty managed to raise the money from the group there to basically for a scholarship for Claude to go to Plum Village in France. It was like the first time he'd seen Buddhist priests, particularly Vietnamese Buddhist priests in Rome since Vietnam. He was terrified. He wouldn't sleep in the village. He bivouacked in the forest. He booby trapped the area around where he was sleeping. Took him a lot of work to turn his life around. But he did this peace walk. It went from really a group of nuns who walked for peace, and he joined them. They did a walk started in Auschwitz and ended in Hiroshima. And Claude only made it as far as I think Vietnam. They walked through war zones, and he had this story about meeting this. They walked through Bosnia at a time when that was a war zone, and all these, as Claude tells it, like they're all peacemakers. That's what all these people are. That's not all Zen, but they're all peacemakers. That's what they're on this walk for, walking for peace. But nobody wants to talk to the soldiers. Claude was the only one who talked to the soldiers. So he's talking to this soldier in Bosnia. And Claude has this mala that he's wearing. And Buddhist prayer beads. And the soldier asks for the mala. Would you give me your mala? And Claude says, I'll trade you. You give me your gun, I'll give you the mala. The soldier gets kind of freaked out. If I give you my gun, they'll shoot me. It's like they'll treat it as a war crime if I give my gun away. So Claude negotiates with him for a while. and the soldier finally decides on a deal he can make. In exchange for the mala, he gives Claude his bullets. Maybe there's a deal there. You can keep your gun. Give Muyo your bullets. He'll keep them safe for you. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Coming up? Yeah, Kim.
So I am the new chair of our fundraising committee at our Zen Center. And I'm not sure why I'm supposed to be doing this particular job, but I invited the people on the little committee over to my house, and we are talking, and I'm showing them different organizations that have given money to Buddhist causes and asking them, like, do we want to go look for some money for something? And the general sense of it was, we don't really need anything because we're mostly white, comfortable group of people, about 100 people. We have a news center. I don't know, it's just really comfortable. Everybody, I don't know. And we also live in one of the cities with one of the worst homeless problems in the country. And we also have maybe, I guess, a third Latina population. And I don't know anyone, well, I'm sure there's some people who speak Spanish, but it just seems like we're so homogeneous. And so we started brainstorming about, like, doesn't someone want to do something else, something different besides having art shows and, doing our white people things that we do all day long at our Zen Center? And so we started thinking about some things, and we made a small list. So we're going to go out and try to raise some money to reinvigorate the prison program that used to be there. And a few other things, but it's just dawned on me. I didn't realize how kind of insular we are, and we all just sit there and stare at the wall, and we don't really do anything or do much. I shouldn't say anything. We do have a Zen Peacemakers affiliate, and we, some of us go to the soup kitchen and serve lunch now and then, but it's pretty minimal. And so that's what all of this made me think about, how stuck we are, it seems to me. But I don't know if anyone else agrees with that. I think everybody's pretty content. And I think that's why they wanted a fundraising committees, because I think people feel kind of restless, like we should be doing more. So anyway, those are all the things I thought about when I was reading this.
It's very interesting. I think most, and it's not just in the Zen world. I think it's in certainly most American churches. The doing for others is, like this occasional activity, like the soup kitchen story that captures it, and I think it's true of everyone, every soup kitchen everywhere. Like if you want to serve on Christmas, there's a long waiting list. You got to sign up years ahead of time to get to serve on Christmas. They got plenty of openings, opportunities to serve any other day. You know, nah, I'll wait 7 years for my Christmas opening, you know? There's a lot here coming up. We'll come back to some of this. Who else wants to share?
Well, I'm laughing because you just touched upon my job quite a bit here, which is the Christmas soup kitchen and the Easter soup kitchen, and let's do something once a year to help refugees, and boy, did we do good. So I struggle with that. I resonate with the comfortability. I also serve a congregation that has a lot of Appalachian folk who are, I guess, spiritual refugees from what they grew up in. So there's that. And then my Zen community is kind of the same thing. I don't know why I just had this thought of I've never been busier in my work, and it's mostly busy work, and there's not enough time. But then this weekend we're having a day-long retreat and I'm the timekeeper. So I just thought that was funny. Now I am time. Oh, wow. Where was that? Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm resisting feeling like, oh, I did good here, because I'm becoming the vice president of this organization in town that mostly works with Christians, but it's the most diverse interaction because, Unitarian Universalists, we're not really Christian, but we're mostly white. That's just what it is. And so it's our most diverse interaction and justice interaction and social action. And I'm watching as so many folks are getting heavily invested and the selfless service, but then there's still this little group that's just like, we want to just discuss and not get involved in this really. So I don't know, I guess I'm just wrestling with the having to serve both groups of people, having to be present to those who want to discuss things to death and those who really want to get going, and try to find some balance or at least presence to both of those things. I feel really good going into the position I am. I'm kind of terrified because I'm the first non-Christian to have that position in this organization. It's a lot of, I'm sorry if I'm not trying to offend anyone, but for me, it's just a lot of Jesus stuff, and here I'm coming like, okay, let's get to work. And I think that's what's cool is we just get to work. We don't dwell in the beliefs. So I guess that's what's coming up, thinking about that, and also just the position I serve in my work. Definitely. One thing, so here, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to give advice here, but the thing about, let's do another art show, and because we just had an art show. But what we did, what was really cool is we made sure that we invited the Appalachian art community first, and they got to do it for free. And they got the most prominent position. So that was a nice little small entryway into, yeah, we can still do our things, but we can still have an impact. Maybe. We'll see. So anyway, that's what's coming up.
Yeah.
Can I just say one more thing? I find that, I don't know if you can see on my mug, this is a real conversation starting because people ask me about it. And I don't think you use this logo anymore, but I always found this as a very start to conversation. And, because people want to know about it, and I can explain a little bit about, instructions to the cook and everything. So I just wanted to bring that up because I was sitting.
What is, I can't read it. What is it? What are the words on it?
It's the old Peacemaker,
Uh-huh,
the old logo.
yeah,
I think you stopped using it maybe 5-6 years ago.
uh-huh.
I
Really?
I got a T-shirt from Zen Peacemakers, and it has that logo on it, and I just got it.
Yeah, and it's a great conversation starter, and maybe it's time to bring that back in the Zen Peacemakers.
I didn't know they had dropped it. That's the white, plume. That's Miyazumi's father's, I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
Totem,
Well, like I say, I just wanted
Yeah.
to bring that up.
Couple of people haven't spoken.
Yeah, this is Carla. Good to see everyone this morning. Answering the question of serviceship, practice mindfulness at a addiction recovery center, and really appreciate that work. And it helps me in my personal life. I support a loved one, a nephew who's in recovery, so it's been very helpful to me. And what's coming up, often there's a dual diagnosis going on, and I actually really enjoy working with people that have that, and talking and supporting someone in active psychosis at the moment. And so last night, seeing the news, I have to admit it was triggering for me. It was kind of tender, because this one that I support has been violent before, and has been in states of psychosis, and has been incarcerated and all this other stuff. And one of the, I guess, surprises of the practice is right before I was going to bed, I walked outside, and I was looking up at the stars, and like 7 lines of poetry came in my head. They just were in there really solid. So I wrote them down, and I was able to just kind of give it up. Just say, you know what, I'm going to pass this, and I'm going to go to sleep. And I slept more sound than I've slept in weeks. And I woke up, and the 7 lines were still in my head. So I just kind of wrote them down. So I also appreciate, Ken, that you started with that. And I appreciate that sometimes, I can touch that pure presence of just being able to be with suffering, and then also let that go and let that kind of move through. And I was really grateful for that experience last night in a very small way. And that's part of why I'm at this group. I see I'm part of Sangha, and I'm part of Plum Village tradition, but sometimes it can feel really sanitized to me, especially when I see my own life and what's going on in the addiction and the treatment center. And so I really appreciate being with, just being able to be with suffering, and using the resources of our community to manage that and not turn away from it. So that's what's alive for me this morning. Carla, bowing out.
Not turning away is, where we got to begin, right? Keep turning away, all what's going to happen is we're going to get dizzy. Anyone else? Roland.
Hi. What's coming up for me is that bit of an unsettling time since we last met, because I've had 2 bereavements in my family. One which was expected, because my brother had been given a terminal diagnosis, but then 2 days after he died, his wife died, which was totally unexpected. And unsettling because although we weren't particularly close, I guess what it is it's the first of my siblings to die. So it's kind of like inevitably you have a look around and think,
Yes.
well, who's moving along the perch now, type thing. So yeah, so that kind of, thoughts, feelings, lots of things. In terms of social action, I work with one of the groups I work with is a local community land trust, and one of the things I'm trying to kind of focus them on is this idea of the networking within as much as the networking outside. The fact that in lots of ways, in lots of settings, we get encouraged to go along to meetings or events. So, and they're always described as networking, and I hate that word. But for me, it's just as important to make those connections within the work that we do and stay connected with each other. And one quite dramatic incident recently was one of the people who has been involved with it probably since we started going about 5 years ago. I had a very distressed email from him. And he was basically saying, look, I just can't cope. I've got too much going on in my life, the rest of my life, to do with this. And I had to say to myself, it's okay. He's given 5 years. And when we originally talked it through, we said, well, 3 years would be good. 3 years would be nice if you can give us 3 years. So, yeah, just managing, I suppose, the inevitable change that comes up with people coming in and out of a particular group and social action. But at the same time, how do you keep the social action going without imposing the group or the social action upon other people? So that's an interesting little bundle of stuff going on there. And it's really just reinforced to me, if I need it, how important it is for me to come to groups like this and come to the daily sitting as much as I can, because it helps me to just pause, even if it's just for half an hour, and reflect on what's happening. So thank you.
I hear a theme today, among many, I guess. I think there's a tension involved in working with or you're being part of a group that maybe doesn't see the need that you see to do something, whatever that something might be. I'll tell you a story about Bernie, which I found really problematic at the time, but it was a long time ago. uh, there was a moment when I guess Bernie and Jishu were ready to leave Yonkers, and the question came up of where to go. And at that time, Bernie was hanging out a lot with Richard Gere. They were going to bring peace to the Middle East. Richard was really excited about this. He said to Bernie, you know, he thought he and Bernie could do this because Bernie had the get it done karma, and Richard had the money and publicity karma. And Richard had a house. Bernie was in Yonkers, in the southwest Yonkers, in the poorest part of the poorest area in the richest county at that time in the country. But Richard was in the richest part. And he wanted Bernie to move up closer. And we all slept up one day to this what I guess had been at one time a horse farm. Maybe still was. I don't know whether somebody was going to give it to Bernie or what, but you know, we were having this discussion about moving there, and most of us were horrified because Bernie had sold us on you know, practicing in the poorest part of the richest county. And now you want to move to the richest part of the richest county? What kind of messaging is this? We were sitting at these, you know, kind of like lunch tables in what must have been like I don't know what, it was some sort of dining area. I don't know whether it was for the people who worked on the farm or what. But Bernie was sitting at a table by himself. And he said, well, you know, like, if you don't want to come with me, I'll go myself. Something like that. Which I didn't understand at all at the time. But that's what he did. I mean, he didn't end up there. He ended up for a while in Santa Fe. Jishu died very quickly in Santa Fe. He didn't stay long. But he did what he thought needed to be done. There was no meeting at the Grayston Mansion to decide if Bernie should move to Southwest Yonkers. Bernie moved to Southwest Yonkers. Those who wanted to come with him could. Those who didn't want to come with him could do whatever they wanted to do. We get held. Are we being held hostage by the group that we find ourselves in? You know, is serving that group your mission? That may be. You're their minister. That may be your calling, is to serve this group. But if it just happens to be, you know, the group where you find yourself, and these happen to be the ingredients on your shelf, you know, and all you got is Hershey syrup and pounds of sugar, yeah, you could probably make something sweet. But maybe you don't have to just make sweets, maybe you don't have to stay with that shelf. What's calling you? If the calling is to move this group, okay. But if it's the calling is something else, then something else. Bernie's calling at Grayston was not to be the minister for a predominantly middle-class white congregation who wanted to do meditation and talk Buddhist philosophy. He didn't actually tell them they shouldn't do that, He didn't tell anybody they shouldn't do that. And Bernie's got Dharma successors who lead groups that do that. Once a year they go help out on Christmas morning when help is not needed, and say, well, we're doing Bernie's thing, But that wasn't his thing. And then it was time for him to leave Yonkers. Nobody knew exactly why. And what this peacemaker idea was. Bernie didn't exactly know what the peacemaker idea was either. But it took him in a different direction. If you're not doing what you're passionate about, you're probably wasting your life. Which is sort of like, come back to like Rick Rubin's verse or whatever it is about art. If you're not making the art you want to make, you're making the art that your publisher wants you to make, or whoever, you're wasting your life. You may be making a lot of money, you're still wasting your life. And you all know what it is that calls you. You just hang up the receiver. Don't want to take the call. That's what we were trained to do by parents and schools and stuff like that. Is they're not paying attention to the call. Do what's expected. Does that stir anything?
I just had a question about Bernie's time in Yonkers. I've been unable to piece together how long Bernie was in Yonkers until he left for Arizona.
Oh, for Arizona. To New Mexico. But anyway, how long was he?
Sorry, New Mexico. Yeah, that region.
I'm guessing 15 years. maybe 12, something like that. I got there in 1992. And they left in 1998, March. They'd been there for a while. Now the early phase when Zen students were working in the bakery was long gone when I got there. I don't know whether there was still a Zendo in the bakery, but the Zen students weren't sitting there. I don't know if the bakers were still sitting. We never went to the bakery. Bakers never came to sit with the Zen community in New York. The mandala that Bernie talks about existed mostly in his mind. He had all the pieces, and he projected that. And there was huge appeal in that. But it manifested, as the manifestation of all the ingredients was Bernie's life. It wasn't an organization. So when I just accepted the reality of that. And didn't try to get, we're building a network of schools. I didn't try to get everybody. Well, I sort of always hoped that people who were working in the schools would want to come and meditate, or that people who were sitting in the Zen group would want to come and volunteer in the schools. Not much of that ever happened. Even when for a short while we were holding the sitting group in the school, every once in a while, a couple of teachers would come and sit one night or something, but not a lot. For Bernie, it was magic. And it helped him raise money. So he wasn't going around, just saying, I want to start a bakery. People gave people a chance to buy into a big picture. Chuck Leaf, who Bernie brought in, seniors, basically, and became Bernie's successor as the CEO at Grayston when Bernie moved on. It's a student of Trungpa Rinpoche. And Chuck is now the president of Naropa University. And probably spends more of his life than he would like to raising money, which is what university presidents do. But he says Bernie was the best fundraiser he'd ever met. Because Bernie treated people with millions of dollars to give away, which is different than having millions of dollars, he treated them the same as he treated the homeless. I don't know if these were my mother's words, but it was sort of the thing that I grew up with was developing compassion for those less fortunate than myself. You ever heard those words? It's kind of a familiar mother's teaching. Bernie's teaching to me was to develop compassion for those more fortunate than myself. That was a hard koan for me. I was more comfortable being angry at the more fortunate. You know, it's right there. Your inner voice is talking to you all the time. Whatever you want to call it. The universe. You can call it God. Call it anything you want, you know. That voice is there. You've just learned not to listen. You know, Bernie has that long list of things, you know, our excuses for why we can't do anything yet. You know, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough skill, I'm not enlightened enough, I don't know enough. Another one that you guys added for me to the list today, and I don't think I never heard Bernie talk about it, but it's a good one, you know, it's like, my group isn't ready yet. You know, Bernie's group wasn't ready to go to Yonkers as a group. Some of them were, some of them went, some of them helped build the bakery. Some of them didn't. Some of them went around complaining that he wasn't really the Zen person. It wasn't really Zen. It wasn't really Buddhism.
This is Carla. You know, when you're talking, I have a couple of things going on for me. You know, I appreciate the process for me because, like, I was part of a sangha that founded, and like for about 5 years, I tried to drag them all into the places I was going, and they didn't want to go. And so about 5 years ago, I guess I did that for about 5 years. And then about 4 years ago, I kind of just decided, okay, here we go. And started going into those places. And what's been enabling me to do that is the financial support of the original community. So, you know, there's this idea too that, you know, it takes support in order to do some of this stuff. So that's one thing. And I'm still really part of that community and now part of a lot of larger communities. So that's the one thing, is just to really appreciate the process for myself of being able to go a little bit deeper. And then the thing that I know for now I'm getting stuck on is if I'm taking a plunge into territory that might even be considered dangerous, for some people might consider it dangerous, I can't really get past the people in my life that care about me and want to see me safe.
Mhm.
You know, so my husband's one of those people. My mom, who's been through it, is one of those people. And I've been on the streets with my loved one for about a week, and I saw a lot of potential when I was with my loved one in being able to, I don't know, just maybe the calling, I don't know what it was, but something in the potential of a lot of suffering going on. And then I've balanced that by also realizing that this suffering, especially when it comes to my field of service, like the addiction and the mental health, impacts everybody. It's not just impacting the people on the streets, you know, it's impacting the affluent family members of the kid on the street. So like the suffering is, I try not to differentiate between the suffering that is really apparent, that's like right there before our eyes, and the suffering that's also happening with family members that are maybe even affluent. So that's the first thing, is I try not to have that dualistic eye on it. And then the second is just, how do you contend with that you may be putting yourself in danger, and the ones you love the most that have really been through it, do you really want to give them something else to now worry about? I don't even know if that's making sense, but that's where I get stuck with going a little bit deeper.
That's a wonderful question. I don't want to quite talk about the danger part yet, because the danger piece adds another dimension. But family obligation is a good thing to think about. Family commitment. That looking around this room, probably there's nobody here probably is at the age in which they have no commitments. We're all very likely past that stage in life. We have commitments, and family commitments are among the most important that we make. And I don't like Zen's history on this. Too many of the people who get held up as heroes in Zen are people who abandon their family commitments. And there are great heroes. Huineng, the sixth patriarch, his father had passed away. He's a illiterate woodcutter. Scraping out a living that was supporting his widowed mother, And we love this story, we Zen people, he hears the Diamond Sutra being chanted, and off he goes to pursue the Dharma. Yay, Huineng! Yeah, whatever happened to his mother, Nothing good. Tozan, another one of our heroes. The toe is the toe in Soto. Tozan's the founder of the Soto sect. He gets the call. He abandons his mother. She comes. She tracks him down to the monastery where he's sitting. You know the story. She's knocking on the door, and he won't get up from Zazen to go answer the door. God knows what happens. I don't remember. Maybe his mother starves to death or something, But she appears in a dream to him. And in the dream, she tells him, you did the right thing, son. You're pursuing the Dharma was more important than taking care of your old mother. And he feels relieved by this dream. In an earlier life, I was a psychotherapist, and I worked with enough dreams. That's a wish. Yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful if all the people we had harmed just appeared to us in dreams and told us, "Good work, Ken," and we could go on. Miyazumi's, so we have this whole lineage of which Bernie is a big part, but it's much bigger than just Bernie and his successors, and it all happened because Miyazumi came to America and brought, as part of bringing this lineage here, Uh, and I heard one of his daughters talking about her childhood. And it wasn't a happy childhood. I mean, her father was, I mean, we don't want to say that about, about like my Dharma grandfather, but Mayazumi Roshi was a workaholic. And when they went on a family vacation, where did they go? They went to visit Zen centers. As daughter says, like now I'm grown up and I look at this, so I can see like my father did a lot of wonderful things, and and she's really able to appreciate that aspect of her father now, but it was a difficult childhood. So my sense is that the Hui Nang Tozan solution ain't the answer. That there is a need to find balance. What to do about fear? That's a harder question, and I'm not a good person to ask that because I'm a coward. I have a friend who, I mean, she doesn't quite doesn't do this exactly anymore, but when she was younger, I mean, nowadays she's settled down more and she's, does things which are safer and fit with her role better as a professor of social work now. But in her earlier days, she would go into war zones to do good. Like Uganda to work with reuniting child soldiers with their families. She went into Nicaragua in the middle of the Civil War, and was immediately thrown in jail, and thought for a while that she would never get out. I don't have that kind of courage. After 9/11, I got to sit with firefighters. And they would talk about how good, like with a deep, like with a sigh, of how good it felt. What a relief to walk into a burning building after the World Trade Center. Then walking into a regular old burning building was getting back to business as normal. I can't imagine walking into a burning building. I can imagine not walking into a burning building. I can imagine being in a situation thinking I should walk into that burning building. But hard for me to imagine walking in. What's going out on the street? Bernie used to hold me. I'm the poster boy for one aspect of street meat treats. I am apparently still the only person ever to get arrested on a street meat treat. Locked up in a holding cell overnight in Penn Station. And it's scary. I mean, I was on I went on the retreat by myself. It's not something that's ordinarily recommended to go on a street retreat by yourself. Better to go with a group, go with a guide. More dangerous for women than for men. You know, more difficult for women than for men. We all understand that it's easier for men to find a place to pee, if nothing else. I think it's better, I think. And I think what Bernie would say now is these commitments that you've made to people in your life, those are real ingredients. But not every relationship you have in your life is an ingredient that you need to honor. Yeah, that's just making a fetish out of happenstance. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It's like, how did you? But your calling is also an ingredient in your life. And your calling is an ingredient in the lives of your loved ones too. And it's complicated. Very complicated. Abraham and Isaac, that's a good complicated story.
When you've been talking about calling a lot, and something's been rattling around in my brain for a few weeks now, well, a couple of weeks now. 2 weeks ago, I had the weirdest week. It was traumatic funeral, help my mother move, go to Minnesota to marry two friends. And so it was like the major stressors of anybody's life all in 1 week, bearing witness to, death, moving, marriage. But the funeral that I had to do was, it was hard. It was for a kid that was 5 when I got here 8 years ago. So, it was just shocking and awful. And I quickly learned that a good chunk of the family, so in Kentucky, if you didn't know this, there's actually this interesting, it's interesting to me at least, but it's also, I'm curious to know more, but a lot of Norse god worshippers in Kentucky. And a good chunk of them tend to go down a route that I have significant trouble with, which is a little more racist Norse god worshippers. And so a good chunk of this family on one side were these type of folks. And they have the tattoos and they have apparel that tells me what their political leanings are. And I was just panicking. I was like, what am I doing? How can I be here for these people? I was just going down this rabbit hole of who am I to be here for this? I'm not the right person for this. And having some reactions to bumper stickers in the funeral home parking lot, and and all that stuff of where we are, at least it seems like everywhere these days, with hyper partisanship and division. And then there's just this moment where it just all melted away, because none of that shit mattered. Right? Like here we are afterwards, just hugging each other. Me, this I don't, like I'm this super liberal person, right? Like nobody cared. And I didn't care what they believed. I have these guys with these, I mean, some of the symbols tattooed on them would make people just flee. And so, that's not the first time that's happened. And it does make me realize that I live in kind of a weird bubble sometimes, and that's partly by my own design. But there's a call in there somewhere, because things like this keep happening, where the lines in the sand and the division and the expectation that I shouldn't like them and they shouldn't like me and blah 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 blah. None of it mattered, because it was very human to just be present to grief, or to be present to whatever it was in the other instances, right? So I don't have an answer, but I know there's a call in it, and I don't even know if it means
That's a plunge.
yeah, right, yeah, I don't know where it goes, but I know there's something. And every time I have the same thing, but each time it's also a little less, because then we bridge this gap and we just have these incredibly real human moments. And I may never see them again, right? That's very likely. But it certainly teaches me more about the world than and life and the universe than almost anything else. So.
Rowan?
Yeah, I'll just respond to what Brian was talking about. For 12, 13 years, I was a funeral celebrant, conducting funerals for whoever wanted them, really. And yes, I recognize the experience that Brian is talking about. And the best piece of advice I can give and pass on is that sometimes when you're doing that kind of work, you are there to speak for the one person in the room who can't. And what I found was that helped me to deal with some very difficult situations, as you were describing, where under normal circumstances, I would have nothing to do with these people. But without me, the deceased person would not be represented. And yeah, I used to, after events like that, I would come home and almost be unable to speak, because I'd been so focused on what I was doing and thinking about what I was doing. And, it would then take me 2 or 3 days to kind of recover and find myself again. And one example I'll just give you without boring the pants off you. I found myself conducting a funeral for somebody who turned out to have been involved in the war in what was then Rhodesia, as a member of the Rhodesian Armed Forces, and as a fully paid up member of the anti-apartheid movement. That was difficult. Now, I only found that out when, during his funeral, I was introducing people who all stood up and said, in that broad Rhodesian accent, yes, I remember when we flew jets together against the guerrillas. and the pit in my stomach dropped through the floor. And I thought, under normal circumstances, I would walk out now, but unfortunately I can't, because I've got 300 people looking at me to continue to lead this ceremony. And it is when something like that happens, yes, it's just, you know, can end up tearing you apart. So you do have to take care of yourself, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's a very Zen thing, you know, you're talking about. Zen made its place in the world doing funerals, basically funerals for travelers. That people traveling around China. China is a big country, and travel, in, you know, 1,000 years ago was very slow going. And if you died, there was no way to ship your body home to your family. You know, it wouldn't make it. And most religious groups of the time didn't want to deal with funerals for strangers. So, you know, as budding social entrepreneurs, the Zen guys found their market niche there and went into the funeral business. The Japanese Zen successors are still in the funeral business. I'm told that I've never been to Japan, but I'm told in Japan, people, you know, go different places for different ceremonies, depending on who they think does that ceremony best. So pretty much everybody has a Christian wedding, because the story in Japan is that the Christian weddings are the most fun. That everybody has a Buddhist funeral. And Zen priests in Japan basically get most of their income from officiating at funerals. You know, they don't get to do many marriages. You know, this the Zen marriage business is slow in Japan.
And just thank you, Roland, for sharing that as well. And yeah, thank you. And the thing I left out is sitting here, as Roland was talking to about, I mean, what a deep experience. And the thing that went through my mind that suddenly it was okay was, it was like, what, well, who is it? Jiaozhou, you know, the great way is not difficult. If you just stop picking and choosing, it's like, well, okay.
Yes. We have a couple of minutes left. I have a housekeeping question for you. We're moving through the book more quickly than I had expected. So we'll finish the last chapter, I think, next time, right? Next week we have the fifth course. There is an epilogue, which is very short. It's like 5 pages. So we could do, I think, one of two things, probably, unless there's other ideas. One is we could kind of wrap up next week. Another possibility is we do the fifth course next week, and then the following week, we could maybe do an epilogue and kind of final reflection and get your, feedback on what worked in this and what didn't, and what to do differently if the peacemakers ever do it again. I don't have any ideas for an 8th session. Any thoughts?
Feels like the book is almost like an excuse, or not an excuse. It's giving kind of like a maybe a centerpiece to the discussion. Certainly, today's discussion, I don't think follows along with what was being discussed in the chapter, but it's been very enriching for me. And not one of these classes goes by that I don't have something to take away and really consider in my life. This one including. So even if there's some arbitrary subject for the 8th class, I'd hate to cut this short.
Okay. We can call, if that's a consensus, is that a consensus? I can't tell. Carla, yeah? Then we'll call the last one. Well, next week we'll do, or whenever it is, I don't know how many weeks. We will do the 5th course, and then we'll talk about the epilogue. And then we can call the week after that, after the epilogue, or epilogue redux, or something witty. Okay. But we do have a few minutes left, Matthew. Bernie, so we can talk for a few minutes about Bernie's Grayston story. Anybody have any thoughts about Bernie's thoughts or questions or whatever about Bernie's Grayston story? It's just a story, it's an example. What it really is and sometimes we lose track of this. You go to someplace like in New York, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and you look at a painting. What did Rubin call them? In that little verse. You make the finest work, Bernie would say, the finest meal you can. This is the work, this Grayston work was the finest work that Bernie could do, given all the ingredients in his life, at that moment in his life. And then interestingly, as wonderful as the Grayston meal was, Bernie got to a point, I don't know how long it was, Matt, 12 years, 15 years, 18 years, something like that, and what did he decide? I don't want to keep making this same meal. I want to try something else. Rembrandt, great as he was, didn't keep painting the Night Watch over and over again. He had other fish to fry. This is the story of Bernie's finest meal at one particular moment in his life. Copying it doesn't work, I know. When I started out on my peacemaker journey, and I stepped off the 100-foot pole, quit my job, retired, took an early retirement. The first venture we did, which ultimately morphed into this network of schools, was an advocacy organization with the mission of leveling the playing field for people living with mental illnesses. I called it, the Verrazano Foundation, with the THE in the corporate name, when we made it a not-for-profit corporation. Why is the THE in the corporate name? Pure emulation. Grayston, Bernie called it the Grayston Foundation. So I called it the Verrazano Foundation. It was a confusing name. Bernie's was too. For the first couple of years, people kept writing to me, because we were the Verrazano Foundation, asking for money. People thought that's what foundations did. They gave out money. I don't know. We don't give out money. We beg. We want you to give us money. What we ended up doing, was unimaginable at the beginning. Grace, trust me on this one. Bernie makes it sound at some points in the book like he had this vision of Grayston going in. Bernie didn't have a clue where he was going. Bernie really thought he was working on livelihood for Zen students. It was only when he got into it that he discovered that was limited. That was a limited vision. But it was the first step. Then it became a program to employ other people. But it wasn't always. And a lot of those Zen students felt betrayed. When we finally sold at the end, at one point we sold the bakery. ZCNY still owned, Zen Community of New York owned the bakery legally. And Bernie was planning to leave Yonkers. The Grayston Foundation was a different legal entity. And we sold the bakery to Grayston. And I got these calls from former Zen bakers who wanted to know if they were going to get their share, whatever they thought their share was, in the equity when the bakery was sold. That was their misunderstanding, but it was their understanding. Bernie talks in the book about the Zen students that went out to Tassajara to learn to bake, some of them were disappointed in the way, the way this thing worked out. So just, you just take this little step into your passion. And you see what happens. That experience becomes new ingredients. We're down to the last minute, huh, Jeff?
I think so, Ken. Yes. Just a reminder to everybody: we have 3 weeks. I guess you call that 3 weeks, don't you? We're November 16th is our next meeting, so it's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 weeks from today. Same Zoom link, same time.
Well, have a good 3 weeks. Try to keep the world from going to hell in the meantime. Anything you can do to help would be appreciated. Stay well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.